By the time you realize you like someone, your brain has already decided. It made up its mind before you did. It just didn't tell you yet. You think falling for someone happens slowly. A conversation here, a laugh there, weeks of getting to know each other before the feeling arrives and you finally admit it to yourself. That is the story you tell. It is not what actually happened. The truth is faster, far faster, and it happened somewhere you couldn't see. In 2017, researchers at Stony Brook University, led by neuroscientist Lucy Brown, used functional MRI scans to study what happens in the brain during the earliest stages of romantic attraction. What they found was startling. Within a fifth of a second of seeing someone you are attracted to, your brain's reward system activates. The ventral tegmental area, a small region buried deep in the midbrain, lights up with a flood of dopamine. This is the same region that activates during cocaine use. The same region involved in addiction, a fifth of a second. Before you have formed a single conscious thought about the person. Before you have decided whether you like their sense of humor, or the way they speak, or anything else you will later use to explain your attraction. Your brain has already started the chemical process of wanting them. You will spend the next several weeks building a story to explain a decision your brain made in less time than it takes to blink. This is not romantic poetry. This is measurable neurochemistry. And it has a name. Researchers call it the halo effect, first studied in the 1920s by psychologist Edward Thorndike, who discovered that a single positive trait, often physical attractiveness, causes the brain to automatically assume a cluster of other positive traits exist too. Kind, funny, intelligent, trustworthy, none of which you have any evidence for yet. Your brain assigns them anyway, instantly, because the reward circuit fired first and the rest of your cognition is now working backward to justify the feeling. You are not falling in love with a person. You are falling in love with a story your brain is writing in real time, using a single spark of attraction as the opening line. Here is where it gets stranger. Anthropologist Helen Fisher, who has spent over 3 decades studying the neuroscience of romantic love at Rutgers University, identified that this early-stage attraction operates almost identically across every culture she studied. From Western dating cultures to arranged marriage traditions to societies with entirely different courtship rituals. The biology does not care what your culture believes about love. It fires the same way in a Tokyo train station as it does at a wedding in rural Nigeria as it does in a college dorm in Ohio. Fisher's research identified 3 distinct neural systems involved in romantic bonding, and they do not always agree with each other. Lust, driven by testosterone and estrogen. Attraction, driven by dopamine and norepinephrine. The system Lucy Brown's team measured firing in a fifth of a second. And attachment, driven by oxytocin and vasopressin, which builds more slowly over weeks and months of physical closeness and shared experience. These 3 systems can fire independently. You can feel lust without attraction, attraction without attachment. This is why you can be powerfully drawn to someone your conscious mind knows is wrong for you. Your attraction system has already made its decision. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for long-term reasoning and judgment, is left arguing with a decision it had no part in making. This explains something almost everyone has experienced and almost no one can explain. Meeting someone and feeling an immediate, overwhelming sense of rightness, despite having exchanged only a few sentences. People call it chemistry. People call it a spark. What they are actually describing is their ventral tegmental area completing a decision before their conscious mind caught up. The waking mind is, once again, the last to know. There is a deeper layer to this that connects to something far older than dating. Evolutionary psychologists, including research from David Buss at the University of Texas at Austin, have shown that the unconscious attraction system is running calculations your conscious mind never sees. Symmetry in a face, which the brain reads in milliseconds as a signal of genetic health. Vocal pitch, which carries unconscious information about hormone levels. Subtle scent cues tied to immune system compatibility, studied extensively in what researchers call the sweaty t-shirt experiments, where women were found to unconsciously prefer the scent of men with different immune system genes than their own, a preference that maximizes the immune diversity of potential offspring. You are not choosing a partner with your conscious mind. Your conscious mind is being handed a short list that a much older, using criteria you will never be aware of. This raises an uncomfortable question. If the decision is made before you are aware of it, what exactly is the falling in love that you experience over the following weeks? The answer, according to attachment researchers, is that the slower, conscious experience of falling in love is your prefrontal cortex catching up, building a coherent narrative, gathering evidence, testing the unconscious verdict against lived experience to see if it holds up. Sometimes it does, and the relationship deepens into the oxytocin-driven attachment system. Sometimes it doesn't, and what felt like instant chemistry quietly falls apart once your conscious mind discovers values, habits, or incompatibilities the early reward system had no way of detecting. This is why people often describe early heartbreak as confusing in a specific way. Not just sad, but disorienting. Because the part of you that fell for someone and the part of you that is now grieving are not entirely the same system. The dopamine circuit that fired in a fifth of a second does not simply switch off because your conscious mind has decided the relationship is over. It can take weeks for the underlying neurochemistry to recalibrate, which is why breakups feel physically, not just emotionally, painful. Researchers at Rutgers, again working with Helen Fisher, found that brain scans of recently rejected lovers showed activity in regions associated with physical pain and addiction withdrawal, the same regions active in substance cravings. You were not being dramatic. Your brain was going through something close to detox. Your ancestors did not have functional MRI machines, but they built entire belief systems around the experience of being struck, overtaken, possessed by attraction faster than reason could explain it. Cupid's arrow. Love at first sight. Being smitten. The language itself describes something happening to you rather than something you chose. A passive verb for an active neurological event. The metaphors were trying to describe what neuroscience would not be able to measure for another 2,000 years. Something hits you before you can think. And then you spend the rest of the relationship explaining what just happened. Right now, somewhere in your own history, there is a person whose face triggered your ventral tegmental area before you knew their name. A fifth of a second decided something your conscious mind spent the next 6 weeks slowly discovering. You called it falling in love. It was already done falling before you noticed you were in the air.